Welcome to Stroke Forward. My name is Marcia Moran. For the next 40 minutes or so, we are going to talk about things that stroke survivors, or any brain injury survivor, deals with. If you look at me today, you probably don't see a person who had a stroke, but I feel it. My body functions differently. Do I think I will get back to 100%? Yes, because to think differently is to admit defeat. We will talk to all sorts of people who have been there, from survivors to caretakers to doctors, nurses, therapists, friends, and family who have seen us at our weakest. They have cheered us with their victories, no matter how large or how small. How did we get here? That's what this show is going to tell you. Arnie Heuvelman is a lifelong resident of St. Louis, Missouri. He had a stroke at the age of 56. Arnie has been married to his wife, Debbie, for 36 years. They have two daughters aged 30 and 33. He earned an MBA locally. Arnie had a 20-year career at one of the world's largest agribusiness companies, Burge. His position was Director of Finance for their global operations. I'm really excited to introduce Arnie Heuvelman to the radio show, and I can't tell you what a pleasure it is to have you, Arnie.
I'm looking forward to this, Marcia.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be here.
Great. So when did you have your stroke?
It was March 7th of 2020.
Okay, so that's fairly recently.
Yeah, I just had my 3-year stroke anniversary.
Well, congratulations.
It's good to be here, believe me.
Yeah. So what happened? Did you have a carotid artery tear or what?
Yeah, I had a right side carotid occluded, or however you say it, artery. I had a blocked artery on the right side.
Tell me what happened.
Well, on March 6th, the day before I had it, my family and I, we purchased a recreational piece of property about an hour and a half south of St. Louis, just because it's been a dream of my daughters and myself to have, a piece of property where, grandkids and kids could grow up away from cell phones or away from, computers and all the other stuff. And so March 6th, we closed on it. March 7th, we went down to the property and we're kind of working, cleaning some things up. And we had some family and friends down there helping us. So I was barbecuing lunch, and all of a sudden I just had this very extreme pain over my right eye. And I noticed I was starting to lose vision in my right eye. So I walked inside. There was a small house with the property. So I walked inside. I hollered for my wife. I said, "Debbie, give me some ibuprofen." I said, "I got extreme headache, and I can't see on my right eye." So they got me a cold rag, and they sat me down in the kitchen on a chair, and then I'm just rubbing my forehead because it was hurting. And then I looked up, and my oldest daughter says, "Dad, you're having a stroke." And I remember saying, like hell I am, because I had too much going on.
Right.
So our piece of property, it's kind of in the woods, which is what we wanted, because we like to ride ATVs and we like to hike.
Yep.
So my family called 911 and they said, "Put him in a car and get to the closest hospital that you can, because we'll never find you." And they drove me to the closest hospital, which was about 30 minutes away. And then when I got there, they had a helicopter waiting for me, and then they flew me to St. Louis.
Did they get you to St. Louis in time for you to have the clot
The
busting
TPA,
check?
yeah, I did get it in time.
Okay.
And that made all the difference. I have partial paralysis in my left arm. My left hand is completely numb. Even though it's functional, I can't feel anything in it.
Really?
Yes. And there's a kind of funny story with that. Is my mother-in-law is from the Boot Hill of Missouri. And one time she was up here visiting us after my stroke, and we were shopping. And in the checkout lane, my wife told me, she said, "Arnie, hold on to this for me." So she checked out, and I followed her out. I followed her, and we got to the car, and my mother-in-law, in her southern accent, says, "Arnie, did you pay for that?" I go, "Mom, what?" She goes, "In your hand." I said, "I didn't know I couldn't, Marcia, I didn't know I was in my hand because I couldn't feel it." And she said, "Now you get in there and pay for that." So my wife walked in and said, "I'm sorry, but my husband walked out with this." and I have no idea what it was. So she ended up paying for it, and they appreciated that we went back in
Right.
and told them what happened. But so, I mean, I mean, it's just one of the things that happened, and it took me a while to get used to it and accept it. So now that I've accepted it, now I just move on with life. At least I'm trying
Right.
to.
Right. So other than, I'm going to say no feeling in your arm or your hand, do you have any other deficits?
Yes, I still have it. I had extreme and severe mental fatigue.
Okay.
And let me tell you, it was debilitating.
Right.
And I still have some residual, mental fatigue, but I'm trying to work through it. But yeah, I tell you that mental fatigue, Marcia, it was an ass kicker. Believe me, I'm sorry about using that word, but it was an ass kicker.
Yeah, I believe it.
And I tried to explain it to my family what it feels like, but it's hard to explain. It really is.
Right.
It's nothing that I have experienced in my lifetime. And so I mean it's that's the biggest thing. I mean, it almost cost me my marriage, because
Really?
yeah, I mean, I was a vegetable. I,
Hmm.
I couldn't even, Marsha, I couldn't even get up out of a chair and walk 15 feet to my kitchen to get something to drink. I would just be
Yeah.
completely mentally and physically spent.
Yeah.
And but yeah, that was bad. I mean, it was really bad.
Yeah.
When I
So how
would go,
did you get around? Oh, go ahead.
no, how did I get around it?
Yeah.
Well, I still have some to some degree. But my neurologist, he put me on a stimulant that will at least help me get up and move around without having complete exhaustion.
Okay.
That saved my life, and that saved my marriage.
How did it save your marriage?
Oh, I was now at least I was able to help my wife around the house and do things.
Right.
Because before my stroke, I tried to put my wife on. She was on a pedestal. I did everything around the house to help. I did laundry. I even cleaned the bathrooms. I cooked. Just try to make life easier for her because she worked. We both worked. We had two small kids, and then but after the stroke, Marsha, I couldn't do I couldn't even couldn't do a damn thing, Marsha. It was terrible.
Yep.
And my wife
Yep.
got tired of having to do everything,
Yep.
and she didn't, it was hard for me to explain what mental fatigue was, and she couldn't understand it.
Right.
So yeah, it was rough. It was really, really rough.
Yep.
And
Yep.
her and I both went to counseling, and because there's no textbook or notebook on how to deal with this stuff.
Right.
And I'll tell you, my neuropsychologist, she's a lifesaver. She's been great.
Yep.
And
So
I'm not afraid to say it. This thing kicked my butt big time. And I always thought I was a mentally strong person.
what is the most important thing that you learned from your neuropsychologist?
Uh, that I am not the same as I was before the stroke, and just take it day by day, one step at a time. And I kept telling her during our meetings. I said, her name was Dr. Caruso. And I said, I've lost this. I lost it. And she goes, Arnie, you didn't lose it. You just can't do it as well as you do today as you did before the
Hmm.
stroke. But she
Hmm.
said, you didn't lose anything. You just can't do it as well today as you did before. And it kind of hit home, and that really, really helped.
Right.
It helped. It really, Marcia, it really helped in a way that it took my expectations way down.
Right.
And because I was always expecting me to be like I was before the stroke, and I wasn't.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm laughing because
It's okay. It's okay.
I expected to run the 5K the year after my stroke. So you could laugh with me because
Oh, I'll
there's
tell you,
no way. Yeah.
Marcia, out of all this,
Hmm.
um, you know, I can hunt, I can fish, I can play golf, I can play with my grandkids. You know, so I mean, I have a very good life.
Yeah.
I just have some deficits that I'm trying to deal with, and I've accepted I'm dealing with it.
Yeah.
So I mean that's just that's the big hurdle, is to accept and move on and deal with it.
Right.
You know,
So,
I still can't tie my shoes because my left hand is numb. So I always need either ask my wife or somebody to help me tie my shoes, because when you make your bow, you got to pull that shoestring through, because I can't feel it. I keep pulling and keep pulling and keep pulling it, so I can't tie the knot or tie the bow. I now wear Skechers because you don't have to tie it. There's no shoestrings to tie, and I wear my flip flops more and more and more. But in the winter, it's kind of hard to wear flip flops.
yeah, especially in St. Louis.
Yeah, so now I try to wear slip. Even my hunting boots are slip in boots.
Okay. Well, that
So
seems
that's how I
like
deal with that.
yeah, that seems like a reasonable thing to do.
Well, I'll tell you, it's better than, I'm gonna get emotional over this, but when I got out of the hospital and the first time I got home, the first time I put on tennis shoes, I looked down at my feet and I'm like, now I know I'm supposed to do something with these, but what? So I started
Mhm.
crying, Marcia. And then my 6-year-old grandson was sitting there and he goes, Papa, don't cry. I'll help you. Don't
Oh,
cry, Papa. I will help you. And that was, I'll tell you, that little kid, then he gave me a hug. It's just, the grandkids don't care. They just want to make sure you're around to play with them and to be there with them.
and that really puts things into perspective, doesn't it?
Oh, it does. And I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry.
When I
So,
talk about my girls, my daughters, and my wife and my grandkids, I just kind of get emotional because I don't have control over my emotions yet.
yeah, and that's okay. Sometimes I think that we hide our emotions too much,
Yeah.
and
I know we do.
that
You know, and I tell you, I don't care what people said. Mental illness, it's real. It is
mhm.
real. Yeah. I was Another funny story, get away from this crying crap. But when I was laying in the hospital, I had a Chinese nurse, and I wouldn't let her touch me. She tried to do something in my IV, and I would say, "No, don't touch me," because I swore she was a Chinese agent. And so, she kind of got mad at me, and but she got the end of it. I mean, she got it all at the end. Because did you BM today? Now, and I said no, and then she was holding something in her hand, and she goes, "I make you BM, I make you BM," in her nice little Chinese accent. And she was just smiling at this, like she was so anxious to shove something up my butt for me calling her a Chinese agent. So I couldn't wait to have a BM, because I mean every day she came in, with that smile and that suppository holding it in her hand. I make you BM today. So, but after I left the hospital, I apologized. That was not me. So I apologized
Right.
up and down, and she says, "Don't worry, we see this all the time."
Yeah. They don't expect us to behave like a
No,
normal person because there's so much that is different after you have
you
a
know,
stroke.
I was before my stroke, I was kind of an appeaser. I was easygoing. I didn't like confrontation too much. I always found a way to work around confrontation. But now let's put on the gloves. I'm ready to go, and I'm not
Yep.
now I'm not afraid to say it. Where before I would just let it roll off my shoulders and just turn around, and just walk away or whatever, and not worry about it, and go on with the day, or go on with the party, or go on with the business.
My stroke changed our lives too. So before the stroke, I was a workaholic. After the
Right.
stroke,
Yeah, I was too.
I learned I learned to focus on the things that are most important, which is my family, my friends, and my community.
You know what happened to me, Marsha, is when after my stroke, I lost my identity. I didn't know
Yep.
who I was,
Yep.
and because I was always, I was just kind of always there for my family. I knew my role in my family. I took care of the checkbook. Anything that happened around the house or my daughter's house or my friends, I was there for them. And but after the stroke, I didn't know who in the heck I was. So
Yep.
I would say the first year, I was always trying to find out who am I? I
Mhm.
lost my job. You know, I couldn't drive. I couldn't do this. I wasn't allowed to do this. I couldn't hunt. I couldn't go fish. So who was I? Who am I? I had no clue who I was. And that was the hardest part because for the first year, I was always trying to find who am I? Who is Arnie?
Yep.
And it took me a good year to figure that out, who I was and to find myself.
So who is Arnie?
Well, as a very good friend of mine from Montana said, he goes, Arnie, you're still the same person. I said, Ron, he goes, your heart is still the same. You didn't lose your heart, so
Yep.
you're still the same. And that kind of turned the light bulb on a lot. That helped me a
Yep.
lot. And he was right. My personality might have changed a little bit, but deep down inside, I'm the same person.
Yep. Yeah. So when you came home, who was your caregiver?
My wife.
Okay. And
People say
what
a
did
caregiver. She was kind of a punching bag for me. She put up with a lot of crap.
right.
I'll tell you, and it hurts to this day. I talk about it, and it hurts because I was not. I had a very low key personality. My personality was I was always trying to help somebody else. I didn't worry about me. I was always trying to help somebody else. And my wife and I, because I had went through some severe depression, and I didn't know how to deal with it, so I would snap at her sometimes, and then she would snap back at me. So, and that's when we both decided to get some help. And my psychologist, oh my goodness, she helped me deal with all this. Because Marcia, I didn't know what was, is this normal for somebody, a post-stroke individual, how to deal with stuff?
So I think that it's one third of stroke patients become depressed.
Yeah, oh yeah, I bet it. And my wife didn't know how to deal with me, so she went and started seeing a psychologist, and that helped her tremendously. It helped us both. We learned how to deal with both each other, and
Yeah.
and that was a godsend. It really was.
So how long did it take you to figure it out with the psychologist?
2 years. The 2 year mark is when things started coming together.
People need to understand that it takes a while.
It does.
Yep.
It doesn't happen overnight. I tried to explain it to people. It took, I was 56 when I had my stroke. So it took me 56 years to become the person I was. It
Yep.
takes us all. I mean, you look like you're 30 or 25. So it took you 30 years to become the person you were. Because
Yeah.
it took me 56 years to become the person I was. It took me a couple years to recapture that person.
What do you do for interest or excitement with your family nowadays?
We have this farm or recreational property south of St. Louis that we go to as much as possible. My wife and I, we go see our grandkids as much as possible.
Mhm.
And I like to ride my bike. I've got a bike that I like to ride a lot.
Okay.
And we all like to snow ski. So every winter we try to go snow skiing. And I haven't skied yet because I've been worried about doing it because of the stroke. I just don't my stability on my feet is not there yet. I
Yeah.
still get dizzy, and so I wanted to give me plenty of time to get all of my balance back before I try to get on skis again. This coming winter, I'm going to give it a shot to get back on skis.
When you go skiing, and I'm assuming they ski and you're in the lodge or something, what what do they say?
Uh, well, Marcia, I've always wanted to ski with them. Because they just this is only their second winter that where they're skiing by themselves without an instructor, and just like every little kid, you point your skis downhill and boom, they're gone.
Yeah.
So I want to relearn how to ski with them, and that way I have that experience, and they have that experience with me.
Yep. That sounds perfect. Yeah.
So one other effect that has happened to me that I can't even comprehend, much less anybody else. I have no concept of time. I have lost all concept of time. And what I mean by that is, something that happened yesterday, I don't know what yesterday means. I have no idea what yesterday means. I can't even tell you what last 2 hours ago means, because I don't know what 2 hours feels like.
So how does that impact how you schedule things?
Oh, my wife gets on my case because, like, if we decide to go out someplace, I have to start getting ready at least an hour beforehand, because I'm just too slow. Because getting dressed, I don't know how long it takes me to take a shower anymore, or shave or anything like that. I just don't know how long it takes. And then whenever I do things, I kind of take my time. And the next thing I know, we should have been leaving.
Yep.
Or
So
I'll make pancakes in the morning, and I'll forget. I want to go back to my bedroom because I forgot something like my glasses. And so I'll leave the stove to go get my glasses, and not knowing how long I've been gone, I'll come back and the pancakes are burnt,
yeah, that's probably not very good.
because I really don't know how long I've been gone.
So has anyone worked with you on time management?
No, I just try to deal with that myself, and my wife has been helping tremendously with that.
Yep.
By constantly being on my butt about, now remember, it takes you this long to do that, and so she makes sure I start doing things in plenty of time, and she's also being cognizant of that, and she's kind of watching my back too.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, she's been a, oh my goodness, Marcia, I don't know what I would have done without her.
Yeah,
All my family.
yeah.
I mean, I had my daughter's in-laws. I mean, they would they came and got me, Marcia, from my home, and took me to my therapy every day or whenever I needed them. I mean, look, I mean, my goodness, it's my daughter's in-laws came over to my house and made sure that I was able to go to my occupational therapy or physical therapy or what it was. So without my family, I feel sorry for the people who don't have a family.
Yeah,
I don't know how they do it. It's just,
yeah.
you need an advocate.
Yes, you do. You do. So, are you advocating for yourself and for other people who've had strokes?
Yes, very much. I'm trying very much so.
What is the one thing that you've tried that has worked?
Honestly, it's the not being afraid to go to my neuropsychologist, accepting it, and
Mhm.
that is what has worked.
Right. Good for you. There are a lot of people that either don't go because of the stigma attached with, or they go, but they're quiet about it.
Right. Because of the stigma, Marsha, I'll tell you, I'm not afraid to tell people.
Yeah.
I'm trying to advocate for people. It's not uh, the D word, depression. It's not, it's not the taboo word that it used to be.
Right.
It's an illness that you need help with, and you can't
Right.
handle it by yourself.
If you were going to give people, so I'm talking about people who have had
Right.
strokes or their caregivers, some piece of advice, what would it be?
You know, both of your worlds have been turned upside down, and don't
Mhm.
try and do it by yourself,
Mhm.
because there's no textbook that tells you how to deal with things.
Yep.
You know, and don't be afraid to get help.
Right.
There's people out here that have the education and the experience to help people deal with it.
Mhm. Like other stroke survivors.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, Marcia, when I had my stroke and I got home, tell you, the medical community, I would ask some basic question to my neurologist, and he
Mhm.
couldn't answer me. I go, oh, Dr. Snyder, what do you mean you don't know? You're a neurologist. What do you mean you can't answer my question? He goes, well, Arnie, every stroke person is the same, different. I finally said, Doc, I'm tired of hearing this. I'm just some basic questions. And I'll tell you, it wasn't when my daughter founded Stroke Awareness Oregon. I'll tell you that those people in that organization is just, they're my people. When I went to the first meeting or attended the first meeting, they had all my answers, because they were experienced, they went through it, and they knew more about the brain and the stroke, what you go through, than any neurologist ever did.
Because they've actually had a stroke. The neurologist has studied
Yes,
strokes, but there's a difference between
study strokes.
studying and having. Yeah.
Right. There is. And there. I also realize how little the medical community knows about the brain.
Yeah.
There's so little known about the brain.
Yep.
And how it recovers.
People recover as long as they think they can.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
And it's positive attitude has a lot to do with it. And believe me,
Mhm.
I've been down in the dumps because I miss my old self terribly. I really do.
Mhm.
But I have a new self that I've accepted and just trying to manage and work through.
Yep.
I'm gonna try and write a book, and you know, and that's kind of my way of, hopefully, if I can get it done, of helping other people, who've had a stroke, on just basic questions of, I just like, okay, is this going to be a 5-year recovery? Is it going to be 10-year or 100-year recovery? I just want to know if there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And it wasn't until I started participating in the Stroke Awareness Oregon uh, Zoom meetings and talking to them who've gone through it that I realized there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and I do have hope.
Oh,
I mean,
you
everybody
definitely have
has hope.
hope. Definitely
You
do.
know, you just got to have the determination to work through it,
Yeah.
and don't expect it to happen overnight.
And I think that's the thing that's most difficult for most people is they want to be better tomorrow. And it
I did
doesn't
too.
take tomorrow.
I did too. No,
If you think about what you'll be doing 5 years from now that you're not doing today, what will it be?
not working. I'm enjoying, retirement since I was forced to
Mhm.
retire. I'm really enjoying it, but it took me a while because I didn't realize until after my stroke is how much of my job was my identity.
Yep.
And it took me a while to get over that. I was with the same company and just did the same thing for 20 years, and it was exciting. I got to travel the world.
Mhm.
People will say, well, 20 years in the same job. Well, I didn't have this. I had the same job for about 15, but I got to travel the world. Every day was different.
Yep.
And my role every day was different. So it was not boring.
Mhm.
And so, and I enjoyed what I did. I enjoyed my coworkers. I had friends from all over the world. Instead of colleague, we became very good friends. Afterwards, how much of my identity was wrapped up around my job?
Yeah. That's the problem most people like you have and I have, is that you're so tied up with their job, you lose sight of the things that are most important for me and you,
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
is your family.
Everybody gets used to that paycheck, and they're afraid of losing that paycheck. But
Yep.
I tell you, Marcia, after I got home, I didn't give a damn about money. All I cared about was waking up every day.
I would like to thank Arnie for joining me today.
Marcia, it's been a pleasure. Anytime, I really enjoy this.
Thank you.
And as you can tell, I'm not shy about talking.
Thank you for listening to Stroke Forward Podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, please like it on Facebook, LinkedIn, or anywhere else you heard it. If you want a copy of Just Say Yes to Life, please order it from Amazon.com. The proceeds go to Stroke Awareness Oregon, an amazing nonprofit that educates about stroke causes, prevention, and treatment options. The book, Stroke Forward, is also available on Amazon.com.